I'm going to call the meeting to order of the Alexander County Board of Commissioners for the meeting of June 19th, 2013. The invocation is going to be led by Berkey Jennings, who is me, and the Pledge of Allegiance is Commissioner Ryan Mayberry. So if everybody would please stand. Our Heavenly Father, please guide the county commissioners in our meeting tonight and guide us in the right direction as far as the decisions we need to make the county successful and move forward. I will also request that you wrap your arms around anybody in the county that's in need of anything, whether it's health or whether it's guidance in the affairs of their life. But one thing in particular, I just heard on the news tonight, our Heavenly Father, that 3 American soldiers were killed in Afghanistan today. Please open your arms and accept them into heaven. And I will also ask you to protect all the first responders, the fire, police, rescue squad, sheriff's department, in protecting our lives. In your name, I offer this prayer. Amen.
Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
People have told me as they pass me in public that they can't hear me on the radio or even when it's rebroadcast, so I'm going to speak into the microphone. So hopefully they will hear me. The next thing on the agenda is commissioners' comments. Commissioners' report is what it says. Are there any comments that any commissioner would like to make? Anybody? Ryan? Judy? Darrell? Larry? I told Larry that I would like to make a comment. As most of you know, either watching or the ones that are here, I was not at the last meeting, and Vice Chairman Larry Yoder facilitated the meeting, and I told him I was really grateful, number one, for doing that, and number two, that I didn't get assigned any other committees or anything else while I'm gone, because usually when you leave the room is when you get assigned something else. So, Larry, I really appreciate what you did for me by facilitating me and not also assign me any other committees. So I
We were surprised how smooth it went, Burke.
And like I said, I asked you for a comment a minute ago, so I say you're out of order, but that's okay. I've heard that from other people too, by the way.
I tried to hold that back.
I know
but
you did. I know you did. I know you did. Mr. French, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
No, sir.
Okay, good. And Jamie, I'm not going to ask you because I know what you'd say. It'd be kind words, I'm sure. The next item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. And do I hear a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
Move to approve as is.
I second it.
All in favor, raise your right hand. It's unanimous.
It's not unanimous.
I didn't see your hand, so it's not?
No, I vote against.
You vote against the agenda as...
Oh, the agenda, I thought you said I thought you were,
Well, I'm
okay,
adopting, I'm adopting the agenda.
okay, I thought you're moving really fast on that. Yes.
Careful, listen very carefully.
You want me to move down here?
Yeah, get him an earphone or something. But again, I'll repeat again, we are adopting the agenda, and the motion was to adopt the agenda, and I had a first and a second. So all in favor of adopting the agenda, raise your right hand. Okay, it's unanimous. The next item on the agenda is budget ordinance amendments, number 63 through number 68, and I will turn it over to County Manager Rick French.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In your packet of information, we have what we usually refer to as the closeout amendments for the end of the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2013. Budget amendment number 63 is to budget for fiscal year 2013 salaries and benefits, including year-end salary accrual for the first payroll paid in July. 64 is, budget amendment 64 is to increase the solid waste budget for estimated expenses through June 2013, and to budget for fiscal year 2013 salaries and benefits, including year-end salary accrual for the first payroll paid in July. Number 65, budget amendment 65 is to budget for fiscal year 2013 salaries and benefits, including year-end salary accrual for the first payroll paid in July, and to adjust the county water and sewer fund budget based on data from year-end, year-to-date revenue reports from City of Hickory. 66 is to adjust the Bethlehem Water Fund budget based on data from year-to-date revenue reports from the City of Hickory. Budget amendment number 67 is to amend the fire district funds and places the estimated revenues and makes those changes. And number 68 is to increase departmental budgets for estimated expenses for the remainder of the 2012-2013 fiscal year, to increase economic development budget for the video production, to increase budgets for public buildings, garage, and animal control for estimated architect expenses, and to decrease EMS revenue budget for the annual Medicaid cost supplement that was lower than originally estimated. And those are the budget amendments.
Does anyone have any questions or comments about the budget amendments?
Move to approve as presented.
Second? Does anybody like to second?
I'll second.
We have a first and second, and all in favor, raise your right hand. Approved. The next item on the agenda is adoption of the 2013-2014 budget ordinance for Alexander County. County Manager Rick French.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. In your packets, you have a copy of the 2013-2014 budget ordinance for Alexander County. After the work sessions that we have, the general fund was $35,481,791. When we first started, we were talking about $34,663,449. The budget, as proposed, per our discussions, has no tax increase. It has fee increases for building inspections, emergency medical services. There's a 5% water rate increase. There are 20 employees. 12 of those employees are with the new detention center, which they would be hired July 1st. 2 in the Sheriff's Department, they would start August 1st. 1 in Human Resources, they would start August 1st. 3 in Department of Social Services, they would start August 1st. 1 in Maintenance, they would start July 1st, and 1 with the Bethlehem Library, which was a position that we moved from 32 hours to 40 hours, which would also start July 1st. During the budget work session, the board approved increasing the school budget $250,000, and that's in the budget ordinance. It sets up funds in contingency for 3 projects. The projects are demolition of the Dayton building, which is $75,000, $265,000 for a garage, and $100,000 for an evidence storage building. Those are set up in contingency and they're on hold basically until they're released by the board to move forward with them. So that means there's no more plans or anything's done with those projects. There's also money in there. If there's a COLA, there's $308,000 for that item in contingency under the same conditions. The projects that we have in our budget or that are part of the budget this year are as follows. The Alexander County Water System, there's a state revolving loan fund that's approved, that we're in the process of getting ready to bid. It's $3.4 million. That project will be paid with water revenues. Another project is the courthouse renovations, and that's 1.5 million. That is basically taking part of the 10 million we borrowed and using the 1.5 to do some renovations at the courthouse. And as you recall, we've had a number of estimates at the courthouse ranging, I'm not sure what the high was, but 1.5 will do some basic things. Mechanical systems is one of the items we need to focus on. Heat and air conditioning system, I believe, came over either on the Mayflower or sometimes it's pretty old.
County Manager French, can I just ask you to clarify that $1.5 million? That's money that we have already borrowed.
That's right.
When we borrowed the money for the law enforcement center, is that correct?
That's correct. It's not new money. It's already been borrowed.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Rocky Face Park, we have, under part, if we have 36 months to complete the project, we are going to budget that over 2 years, or 24 months. But that portion of that's in the budget. We're going to apply for another round of state revolving loan funds. I want to emphasize that project will not be starting during the budget year. We'll just be applying for those funds. The funds that I spoke of earlier were applied for in 2010, so you can say the wheels turn mighty slowly. On hold or in contingency, as I just mentioned, is the evidence storage building for the Sheriff's Department, county garage, the demolition of the Dayton building, which those three projects are tied together. And also, last year, or this fiscal year, we had set aside funds for the animal shelter renovations, and we put that on hold, and it's not in contingency, and so right now, that project is just on hold, so there's no funds set aside for the animal shelter. In the ordinance that you have, which is the budget ordinance, it includes funds for all the volunteer fire departments. It includes solid waste budget. It includes Alexander County Water Fund, Bethlehem Water Fund, Bethlehem Sewer Fund, 911, all the different funds that make up the county budget. It includes all the tax rates and the collection rates. The rate for Alexander County is based on a 95.5% collection rate, and our tax rate is 60.5 cents. And in your, I think on page 5, it lists all the fire departments or fire districts' tax rates. None of those have changed. And there's a lot of information in the ordinance, but the ordinance is what we need to set up our budget as we move into the new fiscal year, 2013, 2014. And I think that's about it, unless somebody has questions or comments.
Any questions or comments from any commissioners to Mr. French?
Mr. French, how much money are we taking out of our
Fund balance?
fund balance?
We show we're taking $3,361,991, but I will say that we have over $700,000 set up in contingency, so depending on how the revenue's collected during the year, commissioners can monitor that and address that accordingly.
But basically, we're going to use $3 million of it,
Yep, yes, sir.
and that will leave us with how much?
Well, based on the number at June 2012, it was about, I'd say in round numbers, $8.5 million. So we're not sure what the fund balance number will be at the end of June this year.
So basically,
Yeah.
you're probably talking about we have end up with $5 million, pretty close probably.
I hope it's closer to 6, but somewhere in that range, yes, sir.
And LGC, they ask us to make sure that we do what?
Well, they want you to basically have 8%, but that's just the floor. We'll get a letter from LGC if we take that much money out of fund balance, I feel certain.
And if we take that much money out of fund balance in order to meet this budget, that is going to cause us not to be able to do any type projects, is that correct?
Well, it'll limit the number of projects that we do, yes, sir.
It'll limit our ability to finance things.
We'll-
I doubt you'll get approval to finance anything with taking that amount of money out of fund balance.
So
But-
basically what we'll do, and it is just exist, is that correct?
Well, I mean, we still have projects that we have.
That we have
that's-
funded,
Yes,
that we're gonna put in contingency, but we'll not be able to take on any new projects.
that's correct.
Okay.
But the fund balance amount could be less than the 3.3, based on the projects that Rick's noted.
If we make sure we keep them on hold.
Yeah. Question, Rick.
Yes, sir.
The revenue for the new law enforcement center, what's the numbers for that, if you recall?
Yes, sir. The revenue for bringing the new employees on board July 1st, we estimated $756,000 for housing inmates from other counties. That would start August the 1st.
All right, 750, round number, okay.
Yes, sir.
I had numbers, I had calculated and come up with 800,000, so that's in the gist of what I had anyway. One other comment, a printout was passed out that reflects the two state budget plans based on, that are being considered now in compromise committee. The state House budget plan would increase funding to Alexander County, round numbers, $232,000. The state Senate plan could reduce funding, round number $654,000. So where we are tonight with what we're looking at, there's still a lot of people that are in other places in Raleigh and Washington that impact our budget. And this, I appreciate Rick pulling this information because it does help.
I have a question on the 12 employees for the detention center. Was that not supposed to be because they were going to have more prisoners from other counties? Why, until we get these prisoners, do we need these 12 employees immediately?
Commissioner Moose, they'll need to be brought on board, and they'll need some training before we receive that many more inmates.
Okay, so
Right now, we're running about 80, I believe around 80 inmates in our new facility. And if we take on, I think the number's based on using 40 beds. And as we move along, it'll be amazing how quickly the facility will fill up. And again, that's one thing to point out. You know, we've always said 164 beds. 12 of those beds are beds really that wouldn't be, you're really talking about 152 beds. So, but the idea is bring those employees in July, get them trained, and so by August 1st, and even that's pretty condensed training for them.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Okay.
And Mr. French, you talked about the revenue for the law enforcement center at $756,000. Now, is that profit? Are you saying that the
Oh, no.
yeah, but that's, I know that, but it's
Right.
kind of what it sounded like.
Okay.
So,
Well, I've
No.
never said it was profit. If you just look at dollars and cents, and it's, when we talked before during the public hearing, and we've talked about this I think about every meeting, the debt service on the facility is $1 million, round numbers. The budget that we are considering tonight is around $2.6 million, plus it's about $200,000 for a full year's utilities. The $200,000 in utilities are found in the public buildings budget. So there you're at 3.7, 3.8. You're still going to be about if you look on dollars and cents, you're still going to be about $1,500,000 short of the revenue you're going to generate.
so every year, we're going $1.5 million in the hole on the jail.
No, that's the cost of the jail.
Well, I understand that.
It's not in the hole.
Right,
You gotta have a jail somewhere. If you send them out of the county, it's gonna cost you a lot more than that.
I should have rephrased that. That is correct. But we're not having a profit of $750,000 at the jail.
No.
I don't want people to think that.
Well, the way he phrased it, Mr. Mayberry, was it's revenue coming in, not profit. I wrote it down. That's exactly the way Mr. French said it. $756,000 worth of revenue.
Right.
An example of the opposite of that, when we were sending inmates to Caldwell, then Avery and Ashe County, we were sending money out of the county, $400,000, to pay for housing prisoners out of the county. So now we're bringing that revenue back into the county. Now, Mr. French, I do have a question. Does that $756,000, it doesn't include that $400,000, does it? It includes just the occupation of the new
That's,
beds,
that's
correct?
right, that's right.
Okay.
And the reason we need to make sure we're clear on what we're showing on the revenue side is because this past fiscal year, I think the number was roughly $500,000 that we did not generate. And with getting the employees in place, there should not be a reason to, that we'd have that problem this year. We should be able to generate that revenue, maybe a little more revenue. And let me clarify what I just said.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman. The reason, Rick, the number he used was $756,000. In discussions with the sheriff, he was talking about 40 inmates at $55 a day, which would be slightly over $800,000. The total capacity, taking out the isolation cells, is 150 beds. We're currently using, when we talked, it was somewhere around 70. We possibly, and the sheriff would have to answer this, and we might be able to use 50 beds for out-of-county residents, which would mean $1 million on the revenue side instead of $800,000. But the sheriff will have to take a look at those 150 beds. Of course, prisoners from Alexander County fluctuates, depends on how many has been arrested this week and that kind of thing. But he was talking in terms of maybe 70, 80 beds, whatever we need to hold there, then some empties, and then there's the gentleman in the back. Have I said anything that's wrong yet, Chris?
You want to step up to the podium, Chris?
And I apologize for that. I'd hate for you to hear this in the morning and say, well, he made all that up. When we were talking earlier, you had, the numbers you had used for out-of-county residents was 40.
That is correct, yes, sir.
And I had gone back and played with the numbers a little bit based on 150 beds in the blocks, and the fact that you're using somewhere now 70 to 80. It'll vary some depending upon arrest and so on. Allow a little cushion in there. You might be able to handle as many as 50.
That is correct, yes,
From
sir.
outside the county.
Yes,
And
sir.
I wasn't trying, if I'd have seen you, I'd have got you up here before I
I
started.
just walked in.
But if that's the case, and there's 50 there every day, that would mean $1 million in revenue instead of 800,000. And
Yes, it'd certainly up it.
that would help the cash flow in our budget.
Yes, sir, it will.
And I appreciate you being here.
Well, right now, I checked with the detention side today. We had 84. But like I said, it goes up, it'll go down. In our jail, it's not like the big prison that we talked about the other day. The prison, Department of Corrections, they're there to stay, where a majority of our people that's under arrest is there till they make bond and/or, the cases.
Trial date.
Done,
Yeah.
so.
What, not, this just as information for me, what would you say based on what the occupancy has been for local inmates? What is it average since you've been in the new facility?
In the new one, I'd say average is 74, 75.
Okay.
So if you kept a cushion of 25, you'd still have 50.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, we're counting on you, Chris.
Well, I'm here with you, like we discussed the other night. I'm excited about start getting these beds leased out, because every day that goes by, we are, all of us, losing some money that can help offset this debt that it took to build the jail. So I hope to have something by in the morning of what this commission decides.
Any other questions for the sheriff? Excuse me, I'll give everybody a chance to ask any questions of Chris while he's up there. Anybody?
No, just make a comment, and he and I have had this discussion a couple times now, and, you know, I disagree on the number of employees that we need out there to run the jail, but you're the sheriff, and I'm gonna let you make the call on that. And I'm gonna vote to add those employees. But I just wanted to say that, you know, we're moving from a 26-bed facility to a 164-bed facility. You know, that's a big jump. So we've seen some of these other counties doing it with less. We've talked about how could you do this, how could you do that, and we're not in agreement on that. And, you know, I don't know about running a jail, but I'm gonna let you make the call on that. But we just, you know, we need to point out that, you know, this is a very unexpected expense for these extra employees. So we've got to come up with the money somewhere, and we cannot keep pulling money out of fund balance every year to do this. I think that's dangerous.
If I may address that, I would like to take just a couple minutes to explain to the citizens that watch this on cable TV and radio and, of course, newspaper. For those that have not been to the detention center, that wasn't able to come, you know, during the open house or after, you know, we've got moved in and see the operation, it's kind of hard, I think, for the ones that haven't been there to see what the operation consists of. You know, we're throwing this number out there compared to Ashe County. Yes, Ashe County, and I've talked to the sheriff several occasions, and the captain over the jail over there. Yeah, sure, they operate theirs on 4 and 5, and with some part-time. The difference between my staff and Sheriff Williams' staffs in Ashe County is that he will not let his staff go into a pod to make their rounds like the state requires. And I don't blame him. If I just had 4 or 5 for the safety of my detention officers, I would not want that to happen either. We have 5 pods, 4 pods consisting of 32 prisoners that's housed in each pod. That's 4 pods. The other pod holds 24. So let me back up. In the control room, which is a second story, control room looks down over these pods. We have, I've requested a minimum of 2 detention officers to work the computers in the front part of the control room. I'll get to the back part in just a minute. But the duties of the 2 detention officers that are working the computers, answering the telephone, there is, like you said, I heard earlier, 164 beds in this facility. Each bed or each cell, there is 2 inmates per cell. There is an intercom in each cell. This adds to the duties of the control detention officers. Every time an inmate pushes the intercom button, they must acknowledge that button. And you can imagine yourself how many times these...
Oh, no, we said that the other day.
Yes.
Why was that put in there that way? Stupidity, but anyway.
We're not gonna redesign the jail
No.
tonight.
Go ahead, Chris.
Let's
So that's just part of the duties plus opening and shutting every door in the detention center, one door at a time. That's the front part of the control room. Right behind what we call the backup control room is another station, another computer that overlooks another pod along with the booking area where the people that's under arrest are brought in to be processed. So right there we have 3. And if we look down to booking that I just talking about, a minimum of 1 male and 1 female in booking. This is every shift, be 4 shifts, 24/7. Reason being the females, because we are now housing females. And last count I had, yesterday, I think it was 17 females that we have in custody. So moving from booking, that's moving out to the pods and where the cells are out. That leaves me with 4 individuals to do 2 checks an hour per pod, top floor, bottom floor, and not counting the segregation cells that must be checked also. So that's kind of an overall of the number that I have requested to get by in our jail. Knock on wood, we have not had a major problem as far as fights, other inmates or prisoners hurting each other, of the way that the detention officers are running it. The prisoners are let out 3 hours a day, 8 at a time. Well, that still leaves an officer, detention officer, if something would happen, to go in. Of course, we're gonna call the other 3 that's on the floor in to help break up the fight, whatever's wrong.
Chris, can I just mention one thing? When you say let out, they're actually just let into the pod. They're not let out in an exercise yard or.
Well, thank you, yes. The cells, it's not like the old jail, we don't have bars anymore. The cells that we call it is approximately 5 by 7 space that they're living in. And they're let out 3 hours per day to shower, make a phone call, visitation, this type thing. Other times, they're locked down in their cells, in this 5 by 7, 2 prisoners per cell. And including the 4 that's on the floor, that's, one of those is gonna have the responsibility of running back and forth to the Department of Corrections 3 times a day, picking up breakfast, lunch, and supper. So it's actually leaves us 3 that's on the floor. The transport officers that the board gave us a month or 6 weeks ago, their duties also, and now we have court just about every day. When we don't have court, like this week, it's been a judges' conference, and they've either broke early or not had any. These officers are still busy. We put them in the jail, helping with the rounds also. And when we say transport, I'm not just saying transport from the jail to the courthouse. We have prisoners that is out of county, out of state, that these 2 will be responsible for going after, picking up from another county, another state.
If somebody's been arrested in Ohio for an offense in Alexander County,
That's
they've got to
correct.
go after him and bring him back to Alexander County.
That's correct. So I know the number sounds way out of proportion, but me as being the sheriff responsible for the jail and an operation, I just feel that a minimum of the number that we proposed in the budget is no less than we could get by with.
And Sheriff, and you and I, we spent 2 hours probably out there together going through everything, and, you know, I understand what you're talking about. You know, most of the people that are probably listening right now can't get that, their heads wrapped around it.
That's why I want to try to explain.
Right. But Yeah, I appreciate you taking the time, you know, we spent together out there going through everything. You know, I hope everything, you know, runs as efficiently as possible, and I'm, you know, have confidence in the people that are out there. So, and I know Michael Harrison will do a great job, and he'll be a great jail administrator.
Yes, Captain Harrison is taking a big load off of my shoulders, along with Lieutenant Starnes and Lieutenant Van Story, who, of course, if they have a problem, they come to me. But they're the actual ones that's looking over the operation of the detention center.
Okay.
Chris, I just had one question. You said the duties of the people up in the observation was they had to answer phone calls and stuff like, what kind of phone calls?
The calls that come into the jail.
You mean the reception, you mean anybody in this room can just call and they have to answer the phone?
Yes, ma'am. I do not have a receptionist in the jail.
Who is Rita? What does she do?
Rita is on the LE part, law enforcement part, the sheriff's office. She answers the incoming calls to the sheriff's office, you know, just to me, to wherever it needs to go, and
Chris,
to transfer to the
May I
jail.
may I interrupt?
Yes.
We're getting into personnel issues, and we're not supposed to talk about that in public, so Judy, he really can't answer those questions.
Okay, sorry. I just thought that was a duty that they shouldn't have to bother with.
It's a personnel issue, then that's why
Okay.
we can't talk about it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Chris, anything else you'd like to say?
Well, no, just in closing, I hope the board will take a real close look at our proposed budget that I'm sure you have by now on the number of staff and the salary adjustments.
I do have a question, but it's a generic question, so it's not trying to pin you down on anything. You're going to work as expediently as you can to get the prisoners from other counties into the jail.
Yes, sir. As soon as I get on my desk that it's been approved, and I will go ahead and say this, that Captain Harrison and Lieutenant Starnes has been interviewing today with additional staff that, you know, of course, if it's approved what we've asked for, so that we will be ready to start, hopefully by August 1.
And I kind of ask the question in a different way, too. You understand the urgency we have from a physical perspective of getting inmates into that jail so we can help pay for it.
Yes, sir. And I'm right there with you. I'm a
Okay.
taxpayer too, so.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Sheriff? None?
Okay.
Chris, you have anything else?
No.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We are at the adoption of the 2013-2014 budget ordinance of Alexander County. Does any other commissioner have anything they'd want to add or say?
Well, Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, built inside this ordinance that you presented to us for adoption tonight, are the pay increases are in there for county employees? And would you, if you don't mind explaining those, please?
In the contingency fund, there are, that's on page 2 of the budget ordinance, is contingency for COLA for cost of living, $308,762. And it's in contingency basically so we can gauge where we are financially, since we're taking so much money out of fund balance, so that during the fiscal year, at some point in time, that you can institute pay increases to county employees, COLA increases.
Mr. French, Mr. Yoder, if I can interrupt with a question. Explain contingency so that the average person would understand what that means, and I'm really coming at it from this perspective. The money will be in the budget, but it won't be spent until we decide whether or not we can spend it, whether or not we can afford to spend it. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Contingency is like for the projects, the money's set aside in the general fund, it's there, and if you decide to do the project, it's already in the budget. You won't have to take it from fund balance.
But
It's-
we
it's
would
already-
also have an opportunity when it comes up to vote on whether or not we
That-
implement it, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. And usually the reason you do it that way is, in this case, is because you want to track your revenues and see where they're running. If they're running on schedule, then you'll deal with it accordingly.
Okay, thank you. I think, Mr. Mayberry, do you have any questions?
Let's see. The engineer that you proposed, that would not be paid out of the general fund or taxpayer dollars. What we've talked about in the past, that would come out of water funds, correct?
That's correct.
Also, we've got, we have talked about, and the sheriff has asked us to look at the raises for some of his employees. And we've all got this handout laying in front of us. And, you know, some of our salaries are right in line with other counties, deputy sheriff, starting salaries there. But some of them are not. And I think we should make a commitment to, you know, raise some of those salaries in law enforcement, raise some of the salaries in EMS, not put it in contingency. We always put things in contingency. We don't have the money to, you know, we don't have the money to keep retraining these employees. We'll lose a lot of people.
What's your?
Ron, go ahead.
I just want to make a
What
motion.
Well, go ahead.
I make a motion, we adopt the agenda as presented
Budget?
with,
Budget.
yes, sorry, the budget. I was looking at too many things here at one time. I'll try to talk slower. Adopt the budget as presented with the following, and these things have been noted with the budget. That the sheriff's staff will be, for the detention center, will be adjusted so that out-of-county inmates can be taken in. I would ask and encourage the sheriff to see if the number we were using, at 40, couldn't be increased to 50. That would have the potential of generating round numbers $1 million of revenue to offset some of the expenses, roughly 4 cents on the tax rate. As part of my motion, the projects that the manager mentioned, the Dayton there are 3 of them, totaling $440,000. Those projects be delayed. They're in contingency, but they be delayed until at least the second fiscal quarter, so that we can see what the impact is as far as revenues and expenses in the county. As I mentioned earlier, depending upon what's done in Raleigh with the state budget, the impact could be nothing. We could have an increase in revenue of $231,000, which is roughly a penny on the tax rate. We could lose $654,000. So that's a pretty good extreme of what's going on in Raleigh. So that's the reason I would suggest that these projects, and I would also, in my motion, make it that the employee raises be put in the same classification, that they'll be reviewed after the second fiscal quarter, so we can see what kind of impact that we've had on our budget and how we are handling expenses and revenues related to the budget.
Can I ask a clarification question, please, sir?
Yep.
Referring back to the salaries, if you will, for the sheriff's department, would those salaries also be in that same time frame?
No, sir.
They'd
They're
be-
in the budget. He's got to hire those people so we can start generating revenue for the county over at the law enforcement center.
So your recommendation is to go ahead and start paying them as they're put on the
No.
payroll?
No changes to the proposed number of employees in any group. We've gone through that. Those people have to be in place, or we're gonna be twiddling our thumbs with
Like
an
I said, yeah,
empty motel.
I just want to
Yeah,
clarify.
no, the employees, what I was putting in contingency was the cost of living
Yeah.
raises, which would be looked at in the second fiscal quarter.
Can I make a comment before I ask for a second? One thing that everybody that's listening, that's in the room, on radio, if we're on the radio or on TV, the proposed cost of living increase would exclude the county commissioners and the county manager. We would not be included in that cost of living whenever it's implemented. And Mr. French, would you like to comment on that? Is that correct?
That, yes, sir. I'm a little bit, I'm trying to follow what,
At the time the cost of living would be considered, it will come back as a budget amendment, and it would be presented and considered at that time, percentage-wise, who's affected, the whole 9 yards. Right now, all we're saying is, if there's a cost of living done, it will be done in the second fiscal quarter. And as far as it'll come out of contingency, whether we leave it in the budget designated as contingency or take it out of the budget, doesn't really matter. It's the same impact. If nothing's done in the second quarter, it's going to stay in contingency, which means it's going to stay in the fund balance.
the budget, the detention budget as presented has the additional employees in it.
Yes, sir.
The COLA is in contingency. So those two things, okay, so.
They're separate.
They're separate.
Yes, sir.
So when you're saying, when they start hiring those people July 1st, the COLA is not included?
That's correct.
Okay, just want to be sure, okay.
And that's what I was trying to
Yeah.
clarify. Okay.
Well,
What- go
I
ahead.
would like a clarification. At that time, in January, which will be the second half, right?
No, it'll be somewhere between September and December.
Oh,
They'll be
okay.
looked at.
Well, I missed that. At that time, we will not, we have to take it out of fund balance in addition to the $3,500,000 that's already coming out.
No, the $3,500,000 is not coming out right now. It would be reduced now by my arithmetic. We're holding the buildings, that's $440,000. We're holding the cost of living, that's round numbers of $400,000. So that gets us down to about 2.5, if my out of my head arithmetic's about right, Rick.
I see what you're saying, yes, sir. The 3.3 is included to basically do the math to make the numbers work, if that makes sense. To make the revenue numbers match the expense numbers. If you don't spend it, you don't spend the fund balance. And so what he's saying is that you've got $800,000 in contingency. Of course, you're showing that on the revenue side, but if you spend it, you'll spend the fund balance. If you don't, you won't. I mean, if that makes sense. It just makes the numbers work.
Mr. French, I've got a question.
Okay?
What have our revenues looked like over the last, 4 years since 2008, since the economy tanked? Sales tax, we had a big change in the way sales tax was distributed a few years ago, basically cut our sales tax revenues in half. What does, in the last 4 years, what do our revenues look like?
They're extremely flat. They're
Okay.
extremely flat.
So we've had no growth pretty much whatsoever.
We have increased our fund balance
I made a
considerably.
motion, it hadn't been in.
I'm sorry, yes, you're right.
There is a motion on the table. Does everybody understand the motion? Any questions on the motion?
Basically, the motion just goes with exactly what.
What Rick has already
what
proposed?
he's already presented here.
Yeah.
Just to make sure that we continue to keep the money in the contingency.
Until we
And
spend
that
it.
any pay increases would not take effect until we voted on it in the second.
That's correct.
Right.
Part.
That's what I understand.
Right.
And my motion gives us a couple of things. One primary thing is it lets us see what's taking place in Raleigh. And it does help us survive without pulling too much out of fund balance. Or
Correct.
as much out of fund balance.
And-
Well,
Right
at
here-
this time, Mr. Chairman, I'll second the motion for, so that we can have an open discussion about the motion that's been made.
Okay. We've had a motion and a second. All in favor of Commissioner Robertson's,
You're-
do we have any discussion, any more discussion? Ryan,
Yes.
you were-
Yes.
Mine was,
Yeah, I was
asked a question about revenue and, yeah.
Yeah, so revenues are actually flat, and we've had no growth. What do you see next year as far as our budget? Are we going to be going to fund balance again?
Certainly.
Are things going to be changing?
Certainly. You'll be going to fund balance again, no question about it. Look, if you look at the numbers, and we have been able to set aside a lot of money in the last several years. This year, we won't be able to set quite as much aside, but again, and not to pick on anything in particular, but the law enforcement detention center project, as has been noted, is going to take more revenue than we have. I mean, we'll have to take that money out of fund balance. I mean, it's just that simple. You're going to, what you're going to take out of fund balance next year, I don't know, but think about it. That revenue is not going to be replaced. So in June of 2012, we had $8.7 million in fund balance. If you take whatever bit of fund balance we take out this year and take out an additional $3 million, we'll be, $5.5, $6 million in that range. The next year, we're going in the same place. If there's not even additional revenue, sales taxes, I don't see those increasing. The numbers are pretty flat. And actually, the last month we reported they dropped just a little bit. So everything's pretty close.
So we've either got one choice with, three choices, basically. Stay where we're at, cut expenses, or raise property taxes. One of the three. Now, we've talked about we need to do, all these things for economic development to get some growth in the county so that we can have a lower property tax rate. We're not doing that. We've got to move forward on some of these projects. And so we've either got to cut some spending or we've got to raise property taxes, one or the other.
And
I hate to be,
there's one other item of spending that the CVCC property that we've acquired this year, this coming year and the following year will take care of that drawing on the fund balance.
Yeah, because it'll be paid for in the next 2 years. That's what, $585,000, two
Yes,
more
sir.
payments? And Commissioner Mayberry, I hear what you're saying. I think probably we could, as we've done in the past, that is a discussion to be held at another meeting.
I
Unless
don't
you have-
see,
It's probably something that needs to be held at another meeting, and I'm not going to disagree with that. And, if you're going to talk about increasing property taxes, we did not hold this in a public hearing in any way. So therefore, I can't sit here tonight and say that I'd vote for a property increase, okay? I think that in the discussions we've had about our budget and trying to do the things we've done, I think we've totally done wrong, and I hold myself responsible for that really, really bad. I hadn't slept all night, I've been sick all day. This is driving me absolutely insane, and I'll speak my piece about this. We either need to raise our taxes 3 cents or 6 cents, because I can just about assure you next year you're going to raise them 9 cents. And I really and truly, from the bottom of my heart, see it coming. And you can see what's happened with our budget in the state of North Carolina and what they've done, guys. They've cut our funding. And you look at what Burke County did. Burke County bit the bullet. They raised their taxes 16 cents. Caldwell County is going to raise them 3 cents. Do I like property taxes? Absolutely, positively not. I hate property taxes. I love user taxes. I always have and always will. But it's something that this commission or whoever succeeds me or whenever they succeed me, it's going to have to be taken a strong look at. And this county and this community needs to know now, in my opinion, you are going to see a tax increase next year. It is going to happen. And I see no way out of it. And we're going to have to bite the bullet and do it. And, you can see it and you can say all the things you want to say, but there's certain not problems, okay? There's certain things that we're required as county commissioners. Our biggest thing is to do the budget. But we're required to provide citizens in this county with the things that they need so that they can have a good way of life. And when I talk about that, I'm talking about water, sewer, law enforcement, EMS, and Our EMS is drained because we don't have a hospital. I'd never see us having a hospital, so the whole world knows I've said that tonight. I don't see Alexander County ever having a hospital again. Maybe sometime we will have an emergency center of some type to assist our people, but I want the whole community to know that come next year, you can rest assured that you will see a tax increase one way or the other, because we cannot continue to take money out of our fund balance. It's like you sitting at home and taking money out of your savings and trying to continue to live like Peter did, because you're not going to be able to do it. You can't borrow from, what do they say, borrow from Paul to pay Bill or whatever. You can't continue to do that. And I really expect we need to do that, and I feel like an injustice has been done this year to this budget due to the fact that we didn't go ahead and raise taxes 2, maybe 3 cents this year, so we could offset some of the cost. Being a Republican and being a conservative, y'all heard me say that. However, I don't believe in raising taxes, never have, but I think the point has come to where we're going to have to take a very strong look at it. We've done very well in this county. Darrell Robertson and I, with all due respect to Darrell, we sat on this board when we had reval, and we raised taxes. We saved the life of this county as far as I'm concerned. We took a lot of heat, but we raised the taxes then because we had to. And we felt like it was a necessary evil to do at that time in order to make sure that this county survived. And let me tell you, folks, the last 3-4 years, we survived very well. And I will say I'm extremely proud of Darrell Robinson and myself for doing that, and we took the heat, I assure y'all. But this county, if it's going to move forward, you're going to have to pay more taxes, because everybody out there wants more, wants more, wants more. And that's all I'm going to say about this budget tonight, and now I'm going to zip it. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Mr. Yoder. Listen,
I would like to make a comment. Ryan, do you have another comment?
yeah, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman. I agree with Mr. Yoder. We've got some things we have to do in this county. I'm a conservative. I hate property taxes. I hate that my property taxes are going to go up, but it's going to happen. We're losing revenue. We have no growth. Come our next reevaluation, I keep up with real estate. I know what real estate's doing. It's going to be flat. We're going to have a flat reevaluation. That's just what it's going to be. So, we can't keep doing the things that we have to do, that the state makes us do, that the federal government makes us do, and the things that we need to do. So, it's a hard thing for me to, really hard thing for me to do, really hard. But we have to be good stewards of the taxpayers' money, and I don't think this budget's a great one. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I'd like to call for a question on the,
Please, go ahead and ask your question.
no.
Means
I
let's
wanna
vote.
vote.
Pardon me?
I want to vote.
vote.
Okay, I've got a comment to make.
Okay.
And I respect my esteemed colleagues, and Larry, I respect you and Darrell and Ryan and Judy. I would not vote for a tax increase. I'm a fiscal conservative. Now, I may change my mind, but it would be a difficult thing for me to do, to change my mind to vote for a tax increase. Because everybody that's listening, watching, Thomas Jefferson said the government has the power to tax is the power to destroy. We are being taxed to death in this country, from a national perspective, from a state perspective, and from a county perspective. Now, I may be convinced otherwise, and I hear all the arguments for a tax increase, and they make sense. And again, like I said, I respect Larry's opinion, Darrell's opinion, Judy's opinion, and of course, Ron Mayberry's opinion. And I also respect Rick's opinion, because he's our county manager. But I'm just telling everyone that's listening to the sound of my voice that I could not vote for a tax increase. So we're calling, now are we ready to call for a vote?
Call the question.
I called the question.
Okay. We have a motion and second on the adoption of 2013-2014 budget ordinance for Alexander County. All in favor of passing the budget ordinance for Alexander County for 2013-2014, raise your right hand. It's 3-2. In favor of.
Mr. Chairman, all the things I've said, I respectfully approve of what this board's done. I respect it, and, but I think was room for improvement, and therefore is the reason I did it. It's nothing against any department in this county, period. No department. It's just my beliefs about the county budget. I can't see taking all of our money out of fund balance and not replacing it.
I respect your opinion.
I just want everybody to know why I voted no. That's why I did.
I respect your opinion, and I respect Ryan's opinion too.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, you know, this is a hard thing to do, but we've got to move forward. And you know, I couldn't vote for this budget. If we would have come to some sort of compromise in between, I could have probably voted for that, but.
Well, there's one thing about it, and not to interrupt you, but we will, I'm sure, once the state finishes their budget, and it's time for us to adopt the budget next year, and we'll see where we stand with sales tax revenue and with property tax revenue, and how we're doing on the revenue coming from the jail, where we stand, and so we'll know what we need to do.
Well, I appreciate all you other commissioners taking a stand and, you know, voting your conscience.
And that's what I did, for
Thank
sure. Item number 3, Mr. French, other business, county manager's report.
Just a few items to mention. Our next scheduled meeting is July 15th, and it's here at CVCC. We are currently trying to set up a meeting with Dr. Henshaw on July the 8th. If you'd be checking your calendars, Jamie will be touching base with you. That's the Monday before. That would be at a work session at the County Administration Building. And just as a reminder, August 22nd through the 25th is the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners Annual Conference, and it's in Guilford County this year. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Any other commissioner have anything they'd like to discuss or report on?
Well, I would just like to say that I know for a fact that Bertie Jennings and as chairman and Darrell as the member on the finance committee have spent many hours on this budget.
Yep.
And I appreciate that because I've got some idea of what they go through, but I could never do what they've done.
Mr. Chairman, yeah, and I want to say, we do appreciate all the time because the Finance Committee, I know they've got a tough job, but I just can't, you know, personally, just taking that much out of fund balance, it gives me a lot of heartburn, and I can't do that. Not especially when it doesn't look like it's coming back in next year.
But I appreciate the job the Finance Committee did, and Mr. French, appreciate what you did, and along with our Finance Department and all the department heads for making their contributions, and the job, you represented the commissioners well, and you did a good job.
Well, I appreciate the comments from both of you, and I won't speak for Darrell, but it's a very enlightening endeavor to do to be on the Finance Committee.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Ryan had some good points, Larry had some good points. Right now, we don't know what the impact's gonna be.
That's right.
Next year, there's gonna have to be an adjustment on one side of the equation or the other. Either there's gonna have to be some significant cuts, or there's gonna be a significant increase. I would suggest that right now, we start planning the budget for next year so that we don't wind up getting down to a 6-week period and shutting our eyes and trying to have visions about, well, will a 3-cent work or will a 4-cent or what? We need to spend, starting July 1st, getting ready for next year because it's exactly like living on a credit card. It won't last.
I totally agree. I would just reiterate the fact that I would rather look at first And of course, we'll cross the bridge when we get to it. We'll see where we are as soon as the state finishes with their budget. But my preference, I'll just state it again, would be to cut expenses as opposed to raising property taxes. But we'll see what happens.
Excuse me, we also needed this time to see what the jail revenues are gonna be. That's gonna be a big thing.
That's
And
what I said.
happens, you can't give raises if you don't have the money. So,
Well, I think what Ms. Commissioner Moose, that Mr. French was talking about is that we're not giving pay raises to the new hires, we're just hiring them and paying them their salaries, and the adjustment is in their raises is in the contingency fund. Am I right on that, Mr. French?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? I'm going to make I'd entertain a motion to adjourn the open session to move in to closed session.
Mr. French said we didn't.
We don't need a closed session? Okay. So I'll just entertain a motion to
Moved it.
move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, raise your right hand.